Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are here for the Nature Park Spring Term Roundup webinar. We are based in the museum here. You might see behind me a museum poster. So this is where the magic happens, but not as much as on the school sites, as you're going to hear about in a minute. So I'm Jess Tipton, so I'm head of the Nature Park, and we're going to have a bit of a roundup today. We're going to hear from students Georgia, Jasper and Georgia from Bredon Hill Academy in Worcestershire. So I think we've got the lineup on the next slide of who we're going to hear from. And then we've got Tom from the Natural History Museum as well, from the Community Science team in London. And then we've got Richard from Royal Horticultural Society, who leads the Southwest Nature Park team. So it's brilliant. We've got people speaking from all across the country, and this is a big partnership project. So it's great that we can showcase education settings, organisations from all across the country. So we've got a Q&A set up. So my colleagues Laura and Tegan will be managing that. So do pop any questions as they come up and they will reply as best they can. And we are recording and we will post this on YouTube afterwards. So do encourage people to have a watch. So I'm just going to do a few quick highlights and then I will hand over so you can hear from others. So as you can see, the green glowy dots on the map are getting even brighter. We actually had to tone them down a bit because there were so many. So we've got over 5,000 schools, nurseries and colleges are registered. And then as you can see here, around half of those have got themselves on the Nature Park map. So they've marked their site boundary, and that is a really important first step on your Nature Park journey. So well done. Thank you to everybody who's done that. And then you can see we've got nearly 6 million square metres of habitats have been mapped on those sites. And if it helps, that's 4,800 Olympic-sized swimming pools. There are other sporting features available if you want to convert it into that. So that could be grass, it could be trees, it could be ponds, all different types of features that already exist on those sites have been mapped, which is brilliant. And Tom's going to explain more about how to do that and why it's so important. And then on the next slide, we've just got a few highlights from the Nature Park team of what's been going on this term so far. So we had the final session of the schools forum, and Bredon Hill are going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So we had students and staff from 6 different schools from across the country gather, and they had been meeting up over the previous term as well, and they developed 3 principles that you'll hear about in a bit, and we're working to incorporate those into the Nature Park. We then, as you can see, the second picture there is the climate education framework for the Nature Park. So all teachers out there, academic school leaders, do have a look at that. So it's a guide on how to implement climate education in your setting in a way that's comprehensive and tailored, a really, really useful guide that's been carefully drawn up. And then third point we just wanted to mention was we've been working with other organisations outside of our partnership, so Tree Council, Earthwatch and CAPE, and seeing how they can incorporate Nature Park into their existing schools work, whether that's on the ground, delivering in schools, or CPD training, which is what CAPE do. So they're brilliant organisations. It's been great working with them, and we will see how we can roll that out more widely. And then on the next slide, finally, from me, some of what's been going on in the schools, which is really, really exciting. So we've got some examples there from, as you can see, Norfolk, Bradford and Berkshire, so up and down the different regions. So Drake Primary, as you can see there, they've been accessing all sorts of free support that's available, either funded or supported by the Department for Education, so they can put together a really meaningful climate action plan. And then we've got those gardeners doing a great job there, making that outdoor space more accessible so that it can serve people and planet. Really important that everybody can get involved in enjoying nature. And then over there from St Bart's, we've got students using the digital wildlife identification tool called iNaturalist so that they can monitor what's on their site. And it looks like they're having fun there. Not sure what they've found, but it looks like maybe it's a bit gruesome, but interesting. So that's a bit of a snapshot what's been going on. And I'm now going to hand over to Georgia, Jasper and Georgia from Bredon Hill. Going to tell you about the schools forum and other things they've been getting up to. So I think we could hear that all their sound and everything was all good. So just checking that they're still with us and ready to tell us all about it. Give us a wave, give us a shout.
Hi. Okay, so hi, we are from Bredon Hill Academy. This is Jasper, I'm Georgia, and this is another Georgia. And we are here to talk about how we have promoted and incorporated nature parks into our school here at BHA.
So this term we've been quite busy and we have been presenting our learning and set up a new nature park action committee. We have interviewed 6 students, so we now have a group of 9. We're planning on implementing the 3 principles throughout our outside spaces and involving the whole school.
So with this, we have interviewed them separately, and we have all decided on, like George said, the 6 individual students that we think really care about nature and will really help us promote the nature parks everywhere.
Through future generations.
So as our next steps, we're going to involve the new 6 pupils into several activities like open gardens or the following activities for this nature forum, and try to improve nature. And designing our new outside areas that we're trying to improve.
So in our lessons here at Bredon Hill Academy, we have a lesson that is 2 hours for our year 7s and our year 8s. In year 7, we have an enrichment of well-being and being outside. So it is a carousel of activities, and one is, like I said, the well-being and being outdoors and learning outside in nature. So the point is to help the students understand that there is a variety of key skills that they can learn from outside and in nature. So they can also have a break from inside the traditional classroom, and they can just have some fun. They can be with friends, and they can learn a lot more than they think about it. So they can also go outside in other different lessons so that they can have more experience outside of learning.
So there's 3 principles that we discussed in the meetings. The lifelong, which tries to get children involved with nature throughout their school life.
And the active learning principle, which is getting your active experiences and learning through getting your hands dirty, because that is also part of the real fun. A lot of students at our school find it a lot better if they are outside learning and doing physical and practical things.
The well-being principle is also very important because it shows that nature is always there for you, no matter how you're feeling, and it's always a place you can go to if you're sad or happy or just a bit stressed out.
So basically, a few of these pictures here is obviously there's one of us in the corner, and the other ones are how we have actually tried to incorporate just a bit of learning and people being in their lessons but also outside. So they're really having that free space and obviously learning about the nature and how it can really support you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Georgia, Jasper and Georgia. That was a brilliant summary. You presented so well and so clearly, and we're so pleased that you could join us today. And you've been doing such a lot on your grounds and with your teachers. So thank you to your teachers as well for supporting you. It's just brilliant to hear about. I also wanted to say thank you to Yogi from the museum, who's been leading the Schools Forum work. It's a brilliant contribution to the project, and we will work really hard to embed those principles. So I'm now going to hand over to Tom, who's going to talk about habitat mapping, and then we will hear from Richard, who's got some seasonal ideas for activities on your site for next term, and we'll be in the summer. So over to Tom.
Thank you very much, Jess, and thank you very much, guys from Bredon Hill. It was really great to hear about the work that you've been doing. So on the topic of active learning, the active learning principle, we're going to be talking a little bit about the habitat mapping and how you can go about mapping your site. And you can see some examples of some habitat maps that have been done and are still on the go. If we do next slide, please. Okay, so what is habitat mapping with the nature park? Habitat mapping is simply a method to map and record all the habitats that are present within your settings boundary. So you might have grass, trees, ponds, certainly probably playgrounds. So it's a method to map all of these. You can do these across your entire site. You can see from the map there, you can map areas. So this school, they've mapped their playgrounds. They've also mapped lines. So you can see their walls or wooden fence. And they've also mapped points. So points being things like those single trees or a plant in a pot or a bird box. So we've got a range of different things that you can map. And the idea is that this gives you your baseline map or your first map, which really sort of sets up your space and your setting site for the rest of your nature park journey. And just a brief reminder on the topic of habitat mapping, you do need to have created your site boundary before you do add anything to your habitat map. The reason for this is that when you've got your site boundary, anything you map within that boundary will automatically be linked to your settings URN, and it means it can be included in the data. So just a reminder to make sure you do your site boundary before you do your habitat mapping. Next slide, please. So what's the value of the habitat mapping? Certainly one thing we like to stress with all the data that's collected in Nature Park is that this is all going towards real world data and real world science. It's not collecting the data for the sake of it. It's not just a tick box exercise. It's really going towards really valuable national data sets. And for you, it really helps you and your pupils understand your site's resources before making any interventions for biodiversity. So for example, let's say you have a small patch of grass somewhere in your school. Do you know that how many species potentially are living in there? You might look from a distance and see just grass and think, oh, well, there's probably just one species of grass in there. But if you look closer, you might see that there's actually a whole range of different plants living within there, and that potentially if you simply let that area grow, then that might turn into a meadow. So it really gives you an in-depth look at what you have on your school site. obviously an opportunity to develop green skills, particularly GIS mapping. Esri, who are a partner on the program, they lead in all of the GIS. So we're really lucky to have that, and it's a lot of really useful skills that can help people now and in the future. As I said, it contributes to a very valuable data set on England's educational state. School grounds, we always use the phrase, if you add up all the primary and secondary schools, it's double the size of Birmingham. So that's not including nurseries, so that's even larger. It adds up to a huge area. No one really knows what's in there. Obviously you can use satellite data and things like that, but that's not really always very accurate, and it can not be to a very high resolution. So we've certainly seen examples in the past of schools that have mapped their site, and a satellite imagery has said that there's fresh water in an area, and it's assigned an area as arable land, as farmland, when the school has then mapped their site, and the area where there was satellite said there was fresh water, it was in the middle of a playground, and all the farmland was actually also playground. So there's no better data than you guys going out and collecting it yourselves. We also have a lot of, it's a way to measure biodiversity as well. We've got nature park activities such as iNaturalist and the wildlife survey, such as the pollinator count and ones to follow, that are active directly measuring biodiversity. But we can also get an indication of biodiversity through the habitats that you're mapping based on estimates that have been sort of more in-depth researched in other areas. Next slide, please. So what habitats are we mapping? So we've got sort of 8 broad categories that you can see on the list there. Each of these has their own homepage on the website that you can access through the Mapping Your Site page. Each of these has guidance on how to run activities. Surrounding these, they have different activities, and they also have flowcharts as well. So there's more sort of niche habitat types within these categories. So for example, the flowers and food category has things like raised beds, flower beds, orchards, food growing areas, rock gardens, and there's many more for the other different categories. Next slide, please. So we've talked a little bit about the mapping your site. Well, how do you actually go about doing it? And again, the how to do it is all on our website on the Mapping Your Site page. But just to highlight a few things, this is a feature that I certainly really like, and it's our planner tool. And it's a way that you can plan alongside your students, alongside other educators in your setting, about how you want to actually do the habitat mapping and how you want to break it up, depending on the size of your site. Maybe you want to have one year group focus on one habitat, another year group focus on another habitat. So it's just a way to look at that. So you can plan your sessions, identify the habitats on your site, and then eventually you'd add it to the nature park map, to the digital map. Next slide, please. We've got lots and lots of scaffolding activities around the habitat mapping, habitat heroes, hidden nature challenge that some of you might have done, plus plenty more. We've got ones, as I mentioned, tailored to the specific habitats that you're looking at. So for example, this is the activity sheet around trees. This is activity that we've done with primary school students, with secondary school students, and they all seem to get a lot out of it. So this is teaching you a little bit about trees, a little bit about evergreen trees versus broadleaf trees. So again, these all links to these can all be found through the Mapping Your Site page. But also I'd really stress going to the resource library and filtering through the nature park step, getting to know your site, because there's a huge breadth of activities that you can do around habitat mapping, setting it up, and also whilst you're doing it. Next slide, please. So then once you have been doing those scaffolding activities, then you'd use these flowcharts, which are there for all the different habitat types, and encouraging students to follow the flowcharts. So for example, with trees, following the flowcharts to get to one of the different habitat types, and those are those boxes in blue, so you can see at the bottom, broadleaf woodland, evergreen woodland, or mixed woodland, and there's other different habitat types on there as well. Next slide, please. So some of you that are on the call might have already had a go with this new habitat mapper, but some of you may not have had a chance with it and had a go with our previous method of habitat mapping, which was using field apps, which required you to download an app onto a handheld device, and that was the way for you to add habitat areas, lines, and points. Well, that's no longer a necessity now. We really listen to feedback from educators, from students, from regional teams, people all across the country, and we've made a change that now field maps is no longer a requirement, and we've moved to a browser based tool which you can access through the website. So there's no app to download, and the functionality is much easier. On this, you can add, edit, and delete the different habitat features. The only requirement to access this tool is that you just have to be logged into your Nature Park account to do it. So on this, you can see the create features, all the list of all the different features there. If you scroll down it, and then you just select that button under edit features to be able to edit your features. We're going to be having a webinar specifically on habitat mapping, one on the 3rd of April and one on the 24th. And in this, we'll do some live habitat mapping as well, so you can really see the exact functionality of it. And of course, you can use any device to do this, where you can access a web browser. So now you can use laptop, desktop, phone, and tablet, and anything that can access a web browser. Next slide, please. So how might you run a habitat mapping session? Well, conveniently, there have been a number of case studies recently put on the website about different ways that different schools have been doing their habitat mapping. I'd highly recommend going and taking a look at those and all the other case studies that are there. It's really, it's great to see sort of real world examples of how different people are doing it. So you could divide your class into different habitats or have your class focus on one habitat. A lot of schools, certainly when I've gone into schools and we've done it, we've taken a paper map of the site outside and have the young people write their notes and draw their areas, lines, or points onto that paper map, and then coming back into the classroom together using a sort of interactive screen and having the groups come up one by one and putting on directly onto the map the different habitat areas and lines and points that they found. And then this can lead to sort of group discussions about the different habitats that they found. So for example, in a few of the schools that I've been into, when we've been talking about playground, it's the topic of permeable versus impermeable, and it generally leads to a conversation about flooding, which is always generally raised by the students themselves. So then that can build into ideas of, well, how might we want to mitigate that? Because obviously a flooded playground, it's not ideal for students, it's not ideal for nature as well. So it's a way to make things work for everyone. And then, as I mentioned, if you have tablets and if you have signal or Wi-Fi access throughout your whole site, then you can use the habitat mapper tool on a tablet or a phone outside as well. And just as a reminder, for this tool and any of the digital tools, you can always contact the regional teams or the national inbox for help. Help's always there if you need it. So yeah, now I think we're going to move on to Richard, who's going to be telling us about what we can do next term.
Thanks, Tom. My name's Richard, and I'm down in Devon, looking after the southwest region of the Nature Park. I'm going to have a chat about things we might do next term in terms of Nature Park activities, what to look out for, and also a little bit about a few seasonal jobs that we might want to do. And the first thing to say really is this is a time of year to spend as much time outside as you can. We're sort of leaving stick season and the greyness and the bare trees and everything's bursting into life. And it's a great time of year because it's really easy to just get out and see something different every day and to notice change because it's so rapid. So we're going to have a look at the Nature Park Planner, a few activities and seasonal jobs. So let's have a look at the next slide. So I mentioned, yeah, just going outside and having a look. There are a few iconic species here, a couple of migrants, including the painted lady butterfly that's there, which hopefully will be turning up imminently from the continent as they migrate. And they'll lay their eggs on some farmland plants. They really love thistles, and they'll munch away on those, and the next generation of painted ladies will emerge at the end of the summer, and they'll fly back to have their next generation born before they return here the following year. We've got some lovely little swallow chicks there. Again, hopefully you'll see them soon flying around really quickly, eating lots of insects and building their nests. And you might be lucky enough to have some nests in school or be able to see them nearby. In terms of flora, not everything is as dramatic as these snake's head fritillaries, but even just going outside today, lesser celandines, primroses, speedwells, there are lots of flowers coming out, and there's going to be a succession of different species to look at over the next months, right through the summer term into July. In the pond, it's one of my favorite places to spend time. And the pond, the tadpoles are a constant source of fascination at the minute, as they've emerged from the frog spawn over the last few weeks, and there are fewer of them now. But they're getting bigger. Their legs haven't appeared yet, and it's going to be great. Again, just watching that daily change until we've got lots of frogs hopping around and hopefully eating the slugs that want to eat our vegetables. Next slide, please. So the Nature Park Planner for the summer term. There's a lot to pack in. If you've had a chance to do any interventions for nature in the school grounds, then now is really the testing time to see what the impact has been, to have a look and see how effective that's been and how things change. In terms of activities, I mentioned the twigs, and winter tree ID is notoriously difficult, but now is the time when it gets easy, when those buds are bursting and we're getting the different leaf shapes out. And looking at leaf shapes is a really great thing to do from early years right through to really advanced ecology, because there's a chance to use lots of different language, from really simple descriptive language through to very detailed botanical terms that can help people to use dichotomous keys and get really involved in identification. It's not just science, there's also using creativity to respond to place, and using all of our senses to just explore and get information about the environment in. And sound mapping is a favorite because it also involves sitting still and enjoying or probably just the mindfulness and well-being benefits of sound mapping, as well as paying attention to things that usually might pass us by. Key date to look at there is on the 8th of May, because it's Outdoor Classroom Day, which is hosted by Nature Park Partner Learning Through Landscapes. So it's worth heading over to their website and signing up for that as well. After half term, really just diving deeper into the website and thinking about recording and celebrating some of the nature that we've noticed during the rest of the term. So next slide, please. So some of the favourite nature park activities from the regional teams. Tom's already talked a lot about mapping habitats and the importance of mapping habitats as a baseline for us to measure our interventions and our successes against. And once we know what habitats we've got, we're then really looking at what lives there and going out and identifying species. And using the app Seek and iNaturalist. And Seek seems to be particularly popular because it appeals to those technologically minded children as well as those who might be a bit more outdoorsy. It gamifies plant ID a little bit, and it's great. I like it because you can use it offline and online pretty much equally and get really instant results just from photo identification, and learn something about the plant as well as the names. and then moving up, almost graduating to iNaturalist to produce research grade data. You can use the same observations and upload them to iNaturalist and do all sorts of clever things like create a species list and export it. And that can really help with the biodiversity strand. If you're doing a climate action plan, you've got some hard data in there, as well as contributing to some national citizen community science projects. Going on from that, going a little bit deeper and a bit more specific, is looking at pollinators and another community science project. I used to live with an ecologist who would sit in the garden in the summer with a notepad tallying different insects landing on different colours of foxgloves. This project takes it a bit further because he was just doing some recreational statistics. We can actually make these numbers count. And so the pollinator count is standardized format, looking at a small quadrat for a set amount of time, filling in lots of information either digitally or on paper to be uploaded later. And we can go further still. It's not mentioned here, but one thing I'm going to be doing this year is looking for hoverflies a little bit more and paying attention to the sort of neglected pollinators. And I'm going to build a hoverfly lagoon, sometimes called a rot pot, because the larvae of lots of pollinators like to live in ponds, well, shallow pools full of dead leaves. So you can do that with a flower pot. And it's also a time just to look at the wealth of resources on the Nature Park website and filter by whichever phase you work in and whichever subject seems to be relevant, and maybe think about rather than why go outside, is why stay inside today, and what can we do outside. So yeah, next slide, please. Thank you very much. In terms of seasonal jobs, my approach is to keep it really simple. And in terms of seed sowing and later on planting out, is thinking about planting seeds that will germinate really easily, that will be attractive to not just to insect life, but to small humans who would need to be interested in them in order to look after them. So things like chives, nasturtium, marjoram, lots of herbs that are colourful, aromatic and edible, as well as being wildlife friendly plants. And then thinking about looking after the ground and thinking about water, particularly if you have a compost heap in school, it's a good time to spread some mulch, which will not only feed your plants but also help the soil retain moisture. Other things, small things we can do with a big impact, thinking about managing areas of grass, maybe just cutting at the start and the end of term, cutting borders around areas of long grass, and if you can, even removing an area of turf and spreading some wildflower mix on there, so that you could compare just leaving an area of grass to grow and actually how things will grow when you've removed lots of the nutrients. And then finally, and this is often forgotten, is to think about looking after what we're growing during the summer holidays, especially pots and planters, because we want them to continue producing while school's closed, and also to be there when we come back in the autumn term. So making a watering plan is a really important thing to think about doing in plenty of time before the end of term. Next slide, please. So finally, I just wanted to say, get in touch. We have 9 regional teams in place now, and we're all here to support your Nature Park journey. And we're looking forward to working with all of you during the summer term. So you can find our email addresses on the Nature Park website, and yeah, get to know your local regional offices. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Richard, Tom, and students and teachers from Bredon Hill, Georgia, Jasper and Georgia, for being with us today. Thank you everybody for joining, taking the time out, busy time of year as always. So we've had lots of inspiration, tips, ideas for getting outdoors, for observing nature, for taking collective action to boost biodiversity and improving our well-being, our physical health and learning lots of skills. So that's what Nature Park's all about. We're going to close in a minute. If you have any final questions, comments, do pop them in the Q&A. I can see there's been a little bit of activity in there, question about flooding, which is an interesting point. And there's a question just come in there from Cassie. So next up, as Tom mentioned, we've got a couple of habitat mapping webinars on the 3rd and 24th of April, and then we'll have another one of these roundup webinars in July at the end of the summer term. We've just joined LinkedIn, so do follow us, look for National Education Nature Park LinkedIn account, and we will post there with news and things coming up. There's also our newsletter, which you should be getting if you registered for Nature Park. And do just have a good look around the website. Laura's been posting a lot of links to various news stories in there where you can get inspiration for what others are doing. You can get all the guidance and access to the tools that Tom's been mentioning there through the website. And just to flag, there's also lots of teaching resources for various subjects and key stages in the resources section of the website, and they cover climate and nature education. So spread the word, get your friends and family, anybody you know who's connected to a nursery, a school or a college to join Nature Park. We've got already 20% of schools in the country registered, and that is all making a big collective difference. So yeah, let's get everyone on board, and that way we can really boost biodiversity across the really quite massive education estate. So thank you everybody, lovely to see you, and have a great rest of the term.